and welcome to the Azure Cloud Chronicles. This is our special SQL Server 2025 edition. I'm Joey D'Antoni, and I'm here with my colleagues John Morehouse and Monica Morehouse, and we're going to talk about today's launch of SQL Server 2025.
Are we excited?
Very.
Very excited. Sorry, we're in a hotel in Seattle, so Michelob Ultra and today.
It's nice to be with you guys in person and being back on y'all's podcast. Two of the guys, smartest guys that I know, talking about 2025.
Yeah, we had to jump through. Hopefully, this recording comes in okay. We're like, there's a refrigerator with an iPhone, duct tape might be involved. There totally would have been duct tape if I had any here, but there is not duct tape, fortunately. Introduce yourself.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm John Morehouse, with DBA Associates. I am honored to be a part of the Cloud Chronicles with Joey here. I've been doing a lot of Azure stuff lately. We talk about a lot of Azure networking and Azure components on the channel, but today we are going to talk about the release of 2025 and how excited we are for this. Monica?
So I'm Monica Rathbun, now Morehouse, here talking about 2025 after 25 years of SQL Server performance tuning background with me. I'm very excited to see what's come with 2025.
I just want to mention something before we dive into 2025. John mentioned networking. And John, Denny, and I are going to be doing a special, probably live. We need to figure out the technology a little bit. Video to talk about all the recent problems with Azure Front Door and how you can work around that. And I have this ridiculously complicated architecture for a one-page website that's running in 2 regions. So stay tuned. We'll post some details on the channel about it and look forward to it.
Are you going to shut the front door?
That is
fun.
That is the name of the blog post I read about it and the name of the Azure resource group. So say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about SQL 2025. Today was Tuesday, and at Microsoft Ignite in San Francisco, Microsoft announced the official GA of SQL Server 2025. I published it. You can read more about it on my column on Redmond Mag, Joey and SQL Server. But we wanted to talk through, and we're kind of using my column as an outline for what we're going to talk about. I wanted to talk a little bit about the philosophy, and I think in both of your opinions. I think what we've seen in recent releases is Microsoft built these really cool features, and the classic one is the query store, but I want to talk about some other ones where they build a feature and then they build something on top of that, and they build more stuff on top of it. And you can kind of see this in the last several releases of SQL Server. And I want to say just about everything really interesting here has been built on top of stuff that has been built.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a really smart thing for Microsoft. And I'm sure we'll talk into it, but one of my favorite features is ADR, accelerated database recovery, topic that I love near and dear. I love talking about the internals and how that works. But then they built optimized locking on top of that, right? And you have to have ADR to get the optimized locking that's coming with the box product of 2025.
And we're going to talk about that because that's why you're here. And Monica, you like DB. Let's talk about. And I know this isn't a 2025 feature, but it's something that they built on. Like Hackathon got released, or in-memory LTP got released in 2014. Nobody that wasn't an Austrian gambling site really used it. And by the way, you can actually finally uninstall it in 2025.
Yes, you can.
So if you tested it in the database, you can install it. But talk about TempDB optimization and how that.
The evolution of TempDB has come so far since the beginnings, and 2025 is the culmination of that. We're getting to a point where they've done everything in the background to help lift off the main weight that goes along with TempDB in the background, and 2025 does it seamlessly. And we're getting to a point where, I don't know, magic might happen in those extra files. We may not need them in the future. Things are moving.
Ooh,
I like it. I know, it's going so quick.
I've heard you could mostly, depending on config, I've heard you can get away with not having extra files.
Well, we're going to stay tuned for that and as the evolution of the product goes. But hey, it seems really promising coming from 2019 to 2022. It got better, and now 2025, TempDB is gonna make a huge impact.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how wide of adoption do you think that 2025 is going to be with that feature alone? Because TempDB contention is a huge problem for a lot of customers that we see.
If we can take TempDB and optimize locking and just say these are the reasons why you need to go to 2025.
So those two
sells it for me. The changing of how the locking goes in TempDB.
I think optimized locking for me is like the big thing to get rid of all that blocking and how that works.
Yeah.
Like that. But I totally agree that TempDB contention going away is going to be a huge win for a lot of them.
organization. So I want to talk a little bit more about optimized locking in a second. But I want to bring up one other thing because Monica mentioned, like you mentioned, wonder what the adoption is going to be. And we've seen that a lot of times. In 2022, we kind of had all the problems at launch, and so adoption was probably slower than it usually is. But one of the interesting things that Microsoft introduced, I think, is this preview features flag, and it just kind of showed up in one of the CTPs or one of the private preview releases. And this is a database level setting that allows you to kind of opt in. We've always, like, as MVPs, Microsoft pitches this stuff and asks us to go year in hand. For the longest time, they had this notion of trying to do an Azure style release on-prem, and they never really got anywhere with it. But I think this is going to be the closest thing to it, where you'll enable preview features at a per database level, and if you want to lean into something new, like some of the vectors are like a good example of this is the disk approximate nearest neighbor index. Those are under the preview feature, I think, even at GA, and you have to enable that to enable it. But the goal, from my understanding and the discussions I've had with the team, is that they would like to get rid of trace flags eventually. And you'll probably never completely get rid of trace flags, but if you can eliminate most of them, it makes it a little bit more transparent for people with what they're doing.
I think it's brilliant, and they should have had this in a long time ago.
I agree.
It just allows us, because the cloud is cloud first. So you're getting all these great new features, and on-prem gets forgotten until the next CU comes in, or back in the day, service packs, etc. And there's some really cool stuff you want to take advantage of, and being able to just flip that flag.
It's like it should be one SQL or something.
Yes, something like that, right? Like it's everything SQL. It's just one. So, having this flag, I think, is really going to help us with the on-prem and actually all the different environments to bring everybody into one singular pile of options.
And I think it's arguably similar to managed instance is a thing where you can lock into an older release, or you can be on the latest release. I think it's similar to that, and ideally you'd like to see them get to the same place everywhere. But
there are issues with it. There are issues of having the always update policy. I've got a client right now that I've actually run into that because other features are limited because that doesn't work.
Yes. No, you want to have both options. Obviously some things are going to be more conservative. John, tell us everything you know about optimized locking in 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes. Okay. So optimized locking works on top of accelerated database recovery. And if you're not familiar with ADR is a great way to get accelerated log truncation, faster recovery, faster failovers, all that good stuff. Absolutely love ADR. But I always think it's interesting that this is one of those features that Microsoft actually released and quietly slipped it under the covers. And we as MPs didn't know.
We had to rage to get a PGI when it got released. Yeah, I remember that.
Because we were at a meeting and they said, oh, by the way, we released this to the wild, and they start with Azure SQL Database. So they actually released optimized locking to tens of millions of databases across the world to GA, and didn't really. And there was no pomp and circumstance.
There was one line in a blog post.
Yeah, and we all did what? This is amazing.
Yeah,
and really, what optimized locking does is, if you've ever recurring experience blocking, when you update data, if you update more than 5,000 rows or so, SQL Server will do what's called a lock escalation, and it'll actually escalate the lock from a row to a table, or I think it's table. I don't know if it does a page. But it will do lock escalation. With ADR, they actually implemented versioning on the individual row. Optimized locking uses that row identifier to lock the individual row for the 1 millisecond it needs to update the data. As soon as it's done with that row, it releases that lock and moves on to the next one. So no longer are we locking up the entire table for a massive update. Is actually locking a row, update, unlock. Lock a row, update, unlock.
So I'm very excited about this because performance for two things. Yep. One, it requires ADR, correct? You must have ADR on. So what does that mean for TempDB? With ADR on, it turns the version store to the database level and gets it out of TempDB, which gives me another performance gain. And secondly, every single time I'm talking to my clients about that update 5,000 rows or less, and that's why you're getting additional table blocking, that gets rid of it. Yep. So all of that code that I complain about all the time when they're having to do it in a loop of 5,000 goes away.
And the beauty with ADR and now optimized locking, if you update 300 million rows, and we all know in the past, if you hit cancel, you're going to be sitting there for a while.
Rolling back.
With ADR and optimized locking, if I hit cancel, that rollback is, the documentation says instantaneous. It's really half a second, depending on how big that transaction is. but it'll roll back almost instantaneously. We're talking a second or two.
Or worse, your 800 million row update or delete ran out of TempDB space.
Yes. Yes.
Optimized locking is that we get rid of that in ADR. We get rid of that long rollback. How many of DBAs have been out there that says, "Hey, I this rollback. What do I do? I'm going to reboot SQL." So rebooting SQL is the worst thing to do. Don't do that. You have to wait. With these two features, we eliminate that, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Common complaint, especially from I guess MVPs and even non-MVPs, is that standard edition doesn't have enough resources. And this is a point I talk about later in my article, and I also have one of the shrimp sheet. I think this is one of the places where you see some acknowledgement from Microsoft that their competition isn't like Oracle. I mean, it is, but it's really that their competition is Postgres and Mongo and I guess MySQL. But does anybody really use MySQL? But Standard Edition now supports up to 32 cores and 256 gigabytes of RAM. Express Edition supports up to 50 gigabytes of databases.
That's a big jump.
Yeah,
It was 10, right?
it was 10, I think, and it was Standard Edition was 128, and I think 20 cores or 24.
That's 24.
The other thing that is changed here is Microsoft has added Resource Governor to Standard, and I think all of the new features, as far as I know, are in all editions. Like, I don't think there's anything that's added.
I know for sure ADR and optimized locking are also in standard, which is
Yeah.
a huge win.
Yeah, just remember some of the performance tuning things. You're still going to have to go to the enterprise edition. So, I kind of weigh a standard edition now that we can get all these other resources. Why would somebody go to enterprise? Right? Because I can do a lot more in standard edition that stopped me before.
Availability.
Right? And then the performance enhancements. I mean, there's still lots of reasons to take advantage of that enterprise SKU.
But if you're on-prem and you want to run a failover cluster manager, sorry, a failover cluster instance instead of an AG.
I don't have anything open on that. Sorry, folks. My laptop that's recording
You're fine.
I'm going to take a picture of this setup so you guys can see how janky this is.
The recording says that we're running out of resources, but I got nothing open on my laptop. So,
It makes it interesting.
and Monica's going to take a picture of the whole get up because the camera that we're looking at is actually sitting on top of the refrigerator in our hotel.
And we had to pull the refrigerator out.
Well, don't do that. Don't say that. People from the hotel might be listening.
You have like 29 gig of memory free.
I don't know. I closed everything.
So failover cluster instance, if you're on-prem, I wouldn't do it in the cloud. You can do it with Sios. Like that's the only way I do it. Because then you're on normal storage. All the shared storage options in the cloud are kind of flawed. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. Sios, you can just use regular standalone storage and it treats it like clusters.
Use
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, use that.
But like on-prem, you can really, maybe you have a pure array. Yeah, you can build an FCI. And then, but if you can afford a pure array, you can probably afford Enterprise Edition. To be completely honest.
Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Anthony. Yeah, roll in a few EE core licenses with that next array sale. But yeah, I think just having these resources available. One of the other things we didn't talk about, but I think we've talked about in the past, is that Standard Edition. There's Standard Edition, Developer Edition now, or Developer Standard Edition.
Oh, yes. This is my favorite. Yes. If you didn't know this, you used to be able to get Developer Edition for free, and it would always be Enterprise Edition.
Yep.
But if you were not using Enterprise in production
Yeah.
and you use Standard, all the developers would develop. It would run great because it was taking advantage of the enterprise performance features. We move it to Standard and Prod, and all of a sudden things don't work, and people forget they developed it in an enterprise version.
Yeah, and like mostly people just cheated and just used Standard Edition and treated it like it was Developer Edition and didn't license those. But now you don't have to do that. So like
That's a huge way.
yeah, in 2016, we were doing a bunch of work for Microsoft on the launch, and somebody gave me, because 2016 was when basic availability groups got introduced,
Yep.
which were standard. The only way to do that is to have Standard Edition. And this was pre-GA, and I was explaining to the marketing team that I needed this content. And I like quietly, surreptitiously got this like message or email or something, and somebody's like, "Here's this license key. Didn't tell anybody else I gave this to you." And all I did was pasted a license key in a developer or one of the previews, and boom, I had standard edition. So I was like, if they could do that back then, this was probably largely a political problem, and I suspect it was largely a political problem.
This was a long time coming. This is a big, big win for developers.
Okay, now we're all going to talk about AI. Drink.
Oh,
Not a beer.
AI.
I can get another beer.
Open the fridge, very.
That's on our camera.
And I could go for another beer.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about vector search. It's been something I've been using. Yeah, make it 3. I've been using in the application I'm working on and developing with my team, and it's a really fancy way of saying we're doing this cool AI thing, but it's just like full text search, but it's better. So with full text search, if you think about it, the app I'm building is for a supply chain resiliency application, and there's a lot of defense stuff. So like one of the common things we've been search terms we've had is like aluminum welding or electrical wire. Well, if you use any kind of a full text search mechanism and you search for electrical wire, typically you break that down and you search for electrical and wire, or electrical wire as a phrase. But if someone typed electric wire,
They wouldn't find it.
it wouldn't find it. Vector search kind of converts those phrases into math and lets you, and lots of math, lots of flows, and lets you search that way. It's not like the most game-changing feature, but if you're an app developer, it can be huge because the client that I'm working with right now, they really want us to use Elasticsearch instead of, we're using Postgres and it's on Amazon, sorry, Microsoft. But it's a lot of work to do Elasticsearch. And like, I'm trying it, or OpenSearch we're using, and I'm trying it, and it's just, I'm getting really similar results to what I'm getting in my vector search with like 10 times as much work.
So are you saying people that can't spell like me and type at the same time can put stuff in there and it'll get a roundabout answer much better than full search would have been?
It's like a fuzzy text.
Love it. Love it.
Real quick though, because search uses cosine, I have to do shout out to my high school math teacher, Mr. Mike. I'm actually using trigonometry in real life.
So when your kids complain about math and
Yeah.
say they're never going to use this, I've actually seen the word cosine again.
Yeah, and I did a Redmond column a couple months ago on vector search. You can take a look at it. It kind of goes into detail. I did some stuff for the Postgres team on my own YouTube channel where we demonstrated them in Azure Postgres. So it's mostly the same technology. And this is another thing that Microsoft does. I don't know if you all noticed, but Microsoft Research builds some cool thing, and then they implement it in like 12 different products.
Yes.
Like Column Store is implemented in 15 different
They
things.
get their money's worth.
You just don't realize it.
Yeah.
Copilot.
Copilot.
Yeah. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is very different. This is called change event streaming. Anybody ever done change data capture?
Yes. Anybody ever broke change data capture?
What's your story about breaking change data capture?
It's just,
Sometimes
yes.
if you're not aware, change data capture will scrape the transaction log and put the changes of the data into a CDC schema table.
Mhm.
If you don't capture that data within time, it eventually will clear itself out, and you can actually lose the data if you don't know that you have to scrape those secondary tables.
And it's built over a series of agent jobs. And
Yep.
It's just kludgy.
Yes.
Yeah, especially if you have an availability group, it's even more kludgy. You have to handle who's primary and make sure the jobs start and all that.
You're still going to have to kind of do that for change event streaming. Change event streaming is very similar, but it doesn't have that database side I/O intensity. Bob Ward calls it I/O-less in his book.
Is it really IO-less?
It's close.
It's close.
I don't think it does any physical. It still can back up your transaction log if it's not flushing.
So it's taking latches. It's probably taking latches a minute.
So for people that don't live and breathe in this kind of event-driven thing, are we talking back to service broker? Are we watching for events and grabbing them?
Well, you're taking database, kind of. you're taking database transactions and you're converting them into events. And it uses this format called cloud events. That's a standard format between like Kafka and Event Hubs and all those streaming systems. So it's designed that you can feed like an operational database into a transactional system. Well, we were just talking about this with your client the other day.
Yes.
Where they have this weird nested child thing that needs a trigger and they don't want to use a trigger and they wanted two different databases to work together. Well, what you could do, you could feed those all into events into say Kafka. By the way, change event streaming doesn't yet support Kafka. It will, I've been told. And then downstream, you could trigger something else with it, whether that be some other business process. But all these things are usually tied into driving some kind of queue-based process that's event-driven.
I've always viewed change event streaming as a better performing CDC.
Yeah.
The way that they implemented you're still capturing changes just like CDC. It's just a CDC on steroids that works better performance.
Yeah.
And less impact.
And to go back to our story of Microsoft building on building, if anybody remembers Synapse Link, this is Synapse Link. It's the same code. One of the interesting things I landed on, because Bob had asked us to do a blurb for his book, and I did.
Ooh, I have to go do it. Hi, Bob. I'll get to it, I promise.
And I did it the first day, John. So,
I'm sorry. My client was on fire. Sorry.
But I for my column, I actually used Bob's book as a reference because it was much more robust than Docs. And Bob had a pretty big section on some of the enhancements for software developers. And this is something Microsoft kind of always does. But what I found really interesting about this is they made a lot of changes to T-SQL to make it more ANSI compliant. So one of the things I always hated about SQL Server compared to Oracle, the concatenation operator in Oracle is the ANSI standard, which is pipe. Because in SQL Server, the traditional ANSI SQL or the traditional concatenation operator is the plus sign. If you had integers, you had to capture integers out to strings to concatenate them. And I hated that.
Yep.
And now that it's not the plus sign, I haven't tested this. In theory, since it's not the plus sign, it might actually work. There's a JSON data type.
The JSON data type I'm very excited about. So I get a bunch of people for performance saying, hey, we want to bring JSON in here, but it doesn't perform as well as we'd like to. That underlying had something to do with the data type being like a varchar max, being treated like it, correct?
Right. It was.
Yeah.
Somebody who shall remain nameless, Connor Unningham, said that he was never going to do a JSON data type, but I guess he lost that battle.
Very exciting. Now we have a native one.
Yeah, and I've heard the performance isn't perfect, but it's
better.
It's better, and I think even if it's not good right now, it'll be something that's easier for them to iterate on than like trying to work with. Because the varchar max thing was kludgy. Like to do an index, you had to create a calculated column or computed column. Yeah, it was a little bit messy.
I was never a big fan of bringing JSON in there from a performance perspective. So when people said, hey, we're having a performance issue, by the way, there's JSON involved, and I'm like, oh, but now it's getting a little better. It's getting a little better.
It's like when they brought in XML.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on
I
that.
know, but now you can index XML.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, so just to Joey's point about building on things, they have to start somewhere.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
now they brought JSON in, and so and I don't know if it's going to work or not, but like indexing JSON.
You can index it. You can do it now. Yeah.
I think that's a smart decision on Microsoft's part to incorporate that.
Now that I'm on an app dev project, though, I do understand the JSON a lot better because everything speaks JSON. So, and arrays suck in databases, and if you have not crazy arrays, so like, I'll give you an example. One of the things I store as an array in my main search view is like the certifications. I don't mind storing JSON in the database as long as it's not nested. So like if it's an array of 4 or 5 values, I'll store that as JSON. It's fine. Where it sucks is when it's nested, and then you have to do that. So you want to think a little carefully. One of the other places, and Microsoft is going to improve this, is there's a lot of cases in Postgres where almost all of my functions / procedures, because remember in Postgres procedures don't return data. Almost all of them are JSON output. So I just send JSON direct because it's going to an API and then it's going to a JavaScript front end. So like it just all goes out as JSON because the devs can deal with it. So I like that Microsoft is doing some stuff
And
there.
universal.
Mm-hmm.
The one final thing I want to mention here, because I know Monica really likes to put emojis in her TC, is the unistring function, which is new and will allow you to do that.
I wonder what that does for performance.
I think it's just like an invar card. Like,
I wonder
Well,
why someone's doing that though. Are they doing it just because they're saving comments into the database from some app or whatever it is, and they don't have to mess with
you can tell code was generated by now. Like,
right. Emojis? There's a rocket ship. It's gonna be a rocket ship.
yeah.
So, but yeah, that's interesting. There's always a use case for things like that, and it must be bigger because it's in there now.
Something else, kind of one of our final topics, is availability groups. And this is something you're not going to find a lot about in docs. There's some stuff scattered here and there. I'm sorry to keep plugging Bob Ward's book, but
It's a good book.
it's a good book. And Bob really talked to all the engineers on the AG team and really got the inside story of why they built this stuff.
Mhm.
I will say they addressed two major problems. One, and I ran into this literally last week, the failover and then databases stuck and not synchronizing. And you're like, wait, what's wrong? What failed in what order? Which do I reboot? Microsoft the engineering team wanted to make it a little bit more resilient to that non-synchronizing condition. You've seen that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And the other, yeah, because
We just said don't reboot.
yeah, you have to reboot because you can't even restart the service because the service wouldn't restart because it's pending some. It's no fun.
I mean, when all else fails, reboot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's yeah.
Almost
We don't want to make it scary to do. You're always like,
no, almost every time I see it not synchronizing, I just immediately reboot and try that as the first fix. The other thing that was added here in AG space is more detail to like when stuff breaks, more log detail so you can actually hopefully figure out what's going on. AGs have this weird relationship with failover clustering. Like if you use an FCI, FCIs are tightly contained with failover clustering. Like it's super, super integrated. AGs are kind of like, hey, I'm here, but they don't have that quite tight integration. So a lot of times when things like Horn break, it can get really lost and it's hard to figure out.
yeah,
Agreed.
And so they've added some more logging to that.
that's always a good thing.
Yeah, ZTD backups. Do you remember that? It's been a while since I talked about this. The new compression.
No, I know they've implemented some new levels of compression. I don't know what the ratios you're
Yeah.
supposed to get. But there are new levels of compression coming out with 2025 that if you compress your backups, and you should,
Who doesn't compress their backups?
oh, you never know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's organizations out there that don't have DBAs to
Yeah.
monitor and maintain.
Well, some SAN admins still tell you can't compress.
Yeah. Didn't they change that default too a while back?
I don't know if they did or not. I'd have to go look.
Yeah. Compress your backups because compress your backups and split them across multiple files because they'll restore faster. These ZTD backups, my understanding is that you get more compression and there's no trade-off. So your backups and restores will be faster. The old algorithms from 2008. I know it's hard to believe, but 2008 was actually 17 years ago.
If you're really interested in the backup compression realm, a very smart gentleman by the name of Glenn Berry has blog posts.
It says the other smart gentleman, Anthony Lucentino.
Yes. Yeah, Anthony probably has it too. Yeah. Those two gentlemen are really smart and they love the compression realm. So I know they've got blog posts and information out there. So go look at go find their blogs, nosentino.com and Gutenberg.com. Yeah,
Yeah, and by the way, use Glenberry's scripts for everything.
Yes.
And if you
Glenn.
yeah, and also Anthony's got a great vector setup if you want to use vector search. It's like everything's self-contained. It deploys the LLM on your machine. It's fully self-contained. You can be up and running in like 20 minutes. All right, I want to wrap up, but I want to talk about two other things that got announced at Ignite today that you can see more detail. I'll have another column on this on Redmond, so you can kind of go there. Fabric database is GA. That's about all I have to say about that.
Just remember, it's just SQL.
DR.
It's all just one SQL.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's SQL.
There are use cases.
SQL is SQL
Yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to performance.
Yeah.
It's got its own limitations, but again, just building on top of, right? Keep that philosophy in mind. They're building on top of the existing ecosystem.
Yeah. So that's what we have to say. Okay, this is a big thing, and John and I have just been through this. I think each with a client recently. Managed instance, general purpose,
Next
gen
gen
is GA. And I just want to tell you, I can speak to the client I was talking to about this. Their IO service times went from like, I'm not kidding you, 3 seconds to single digit milliseconds.
Yep, same.
That was the only change they made. Like, and it's a 3 to 6 hour change. In reality, it's probably 2 to 3 hours.
Ours was 45 minutes.
Yeah, you'll have a performance hit when you're
Scaling.
but it's night and day performance difference. So I highly, highly recommend making.
Yeah, and one other announcement is the next gen in the premium series tier. There's a memory slider that I'm pretty sure it came out GA today. But you can get faster CPUs and you can dynamically add more memory. I just went through with my client. They wanted to scale down, but wanted to bump the memory. And so the premium series tier, you actually have that capability of balancing a little less cores, but I need more memory. And that actually made a huge difference.
Yeah, they took that separation out.
Yeah, they took that separation out.
Brilliant.
You got to pay for it, right? So like at 16 cores, you get 112 gigs of memory with the price. If you want to bump it up, there's a formula based off that. You got to pay for the extra gigs, but I think it was like $60 a month for an extra 40 gigs of memory or something. Like it wasn't like stupid crazy. So that came out as well.
All right. And this is like my closing thought on this. And we mentioned this earlier. I feel like Microsoft, with some of the things they've done in 2025, are acknowledging that Postgres and MongoDB are more their competition than Oracle is. I mean, there's still things that compete with Oracle, like vector search as Oracle compete. But what do you all think?
I think, so from my perspective, I think the engine part has seemed to take a little back seat to a lot of the newest features that are coming out in Fabric and different things with MySQL and Mongo and everything's putting kind of the highlights. And they've kind of just gone back to the foundational piece, the engine, and they've really put a lot of work in 2025 and given us the things that we've always wanted. And I think that's key in this whole release, is that they've really started to build upon what they started, and we're getting those foundationals built higher.
So here's a question then. Do we still need DBAs?
Okay, so my wrap up in this is I don't get to see both these guys together in person all the time, but it's really great to have these nerd conversations that we get to have as we're sitting around. If you ever walk by us, we're having these actual conversations, not just on the podcast, all of the time. And one of the big debates is always, are you still going to need those DBAs? Are we still going to need this? Are we going to still need that? And how do we feel about AI? I'm telling you, I feel really very comfortable. I feel like there's going to be a little, it's going to be, I'm good. I think DBAs and the foundational knowledge is extremely important. And this upgrade of going back down to the foundations and building on,
I don't really know what
it's a clear picture.
I don't really know what my title is. I don't really know what I do. I'm an architect. I build stuff and design stuff, and I write code and I develop, and I do a lot of shit. But like the fact that I started out as a DBA and knowing how databases work, and like all the things, like to be a good DBA, all the things you have to learn about, like storage, networking, because like you don't have an availability group without a network. You learn stuff like quorum or storage. Those things are incredibly valuable and are very easily transferable skills to anything else in software. Like it's not, because like devs don't really understand how databases work. No offense, devs, and I know a few of you do, but like it's pretty rare that you come across devs who really know how a database works on the inside. And having that knowledge and like being able to write SQL code. I know the job market kind of sucks right now, but like you'll always have some options, because it's just. And yeah, basic SQL writing might go to bots, but a good description of what I've heard about AI in terms of software development stuff. It makes the easy stuff easier, but in a lot of ways, it makes the hard problems harder, because people built something. They tried to build an app using an AI engine, and there are going to be hard problems that are going to come up. Like we really do nerd out. We shouldn't be talking about food and wine more, but we were talking about like earlier, like building queuing processes to sync downstream events and launch. And that's not something you can just like feed into an AI engine, like get it. You have to like have a really firm understanding of the data, the business rules around the data, and how that all works together.
Well, on top of that, you've got to be able to legitimize the AI feedback. You've got to know what it's giving you is correct. And you've got to understand what it's doing. And that's So that's a people skill.
No, we just vibe code it.
Oh yeah, you're just going to vibe code it. You're going to put it into production. Let's see. It said it's going to give us the right thing until we realize the next quarter that we really screwed up. But no, seriously,
Yeah.
the foundational knowledge is going to be a must. Agree.
So the only closing I have, since this is normally an Azure Chronicles
Yeah.
channel. If you're at the conference, if you're at the mass conference and you're curious as to how to translate your on-premises DBA skills
yeah.
to the cloud,
Oh yeah.
all three of us are participating in some Microsoft Learning Path that will help you guide you to translate your skills to working in the cloud. And what's your topic?
Security.
So Joey's doing security. I'm doing HADR. Monica, what do you?
I'm doing performance with Aaron Stiletto and Pam Lahoot.
And
So I'm very excited about that.
Danny,
Yeah.
are you by yourself?
Pam's there.
Great folks from Microsoft. So if you watch this far, you're at the conference, definitely go to those sessions. It will help guide you to translate your skills into the cloud.
Yeah,
That's
as always, like and subscribe, and I'll stay tuned to the channel for more information on Shut the Front Door.
Yep.
Shut the front
And
door.
cheers on 2025, everyone.
Yeah, cheers.
Yay.
Good job, Microsoft.